Hello everybody, this is Purge. Unfortunately, before you get your hopes up, I don't have an Underworld video coming for you guys, but just a heads up how he works. Thought I'd make a video. I was talking about doing this just for Dota 1 anyways, but now that he's in the game as of today, I can tell you a little bit about him. Now, in Dota 1, he was called Abyssal Underworld. Underworld, I believe. He looked very similar. He was that large, like, demon thing with a giant-ass blade thing. He'd, like, swing it really slowly. Anyways, information about the hero. He has a couple interesting skills. He's kind of a weird hero. I'm not really sure how to play him right now because he has been changed recently. In the past, the way that you played this guy was, I mean, he wasn't played in the pro scene at the time because in Dota 1, you know, less than 50 probably heroes were played in the pro scene at all. There were far less games, far less teams. So we're not quite sure how to play him yet. We'll see how that develops as the best players in the world play him. But let's talk about his skills really quick. So your first skill is called Firestorm. You cast this on the ground. It does up to 6 waves of damage. Each wave does 70 damage, and it does a burn of max HP percentage for 2 seconds. I didn't know that existed in it, but this is what it looks like if you didn't see the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and obviously it will do it in that AoE. So for those 6 seconds, it'll land down 6 times, 6 times 7, just to make sure I don't mess up. 6 times 70 equals, so it does minimum 420 damage, but the important thing is that actually does a percentage of your max HP. So even if you only get hit by one wave, it does 6% of your max HP. So for example, I'm level 25 here. I am a strength hero, so I have a lot of strength, but how much damage does that do to me, for example? Well, I need to know 6% times my current, so 23. Let's do it based on 1,000 HP, just even though the math is really easy, times 0.06, and that means a total of 60 more damage. So for every 1,000 HP you have, you take an extra 60 magical damage if you get hit by only one firestorm. If you're there for the full duration, for example, if you get hit by, let's say you're in the firestorm for all 6 seconds, that means for 6 seconds you are taking a bonus 3%, which is 6 times 3, which is 18, which is already pretty huge, and then you take an extra 2 burn damage, if I'm not mistaken, because it should last after the last interval. So it starts on 1, starts burning, will last until 2, that's 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus 2 more. So it should be 7 total. It shouldn't be 8. So 7 times 3 is the max percentage that you can take. So let's figure that out. 7 times 3 is 21, I believe. Just making sure because I mess this up sometimes. Okay, so 21% of your max HP, and it does 420 magic damage on top of that. That's huge. So for every 1,000 HP you have, you take, if you're there for the full duration, you're taking 210 damage plus 420. That's a massive amount of magic damage. Really good. In some ways, it's even better than Enigma's Midnight Pulse. I think Midnight Pulse, if we can check really quick. Oops, that's not what I want. Enigma, Intero. Midnight Pulse does 5.25 for 11. Obviously, that's a huge amount, but usually people aren't in that for more than 5 or 6 seconds, so it's not as good as Midnight Pulse. And keep in mind, this is also pure, by the way, so that's actually an insane amount of damage. It's like 56% of their total HP, no matter what. This is magical, so it doesn't do nearly as much as Midnight Pulse, but it gives you some ability to play against high HP heroes in late game, because usually what the problem is with nukers is that they do less and less damage as the game goes on. So kind of cool. I like the way the skill works. Keep in mind it's a 12-second cooldown, and it is 130 mana. So the way that you're usually using this is you walk to a lane and you cast it on these, and then you just come over here and slap things and try to get last hits. Wow. I don't know if it's just my agility being high or the animation. Is it amazing? I think the animation was kind of amazing in Dota 1, actually. Okay, so that's your first skill. You're going to use this a lot. I think you should definitely max out the skill first. Almost always. Probably always. Second skill is called Pit of Malice. It basically makes an AoE root. If somebody walks through it, they get rooted and they can't jaunt and things like that. Boom. It spawns, and then anything that runs through it during this duration will get rooted. Does it really last that long? Oh, it lasts for 7 seconds. Okay. So for example, if you're chasing heroes and you want to make sure they don't go somewhere, you don't necessarily have to cast on somebody because it takes a second to go up, basically. But if they try to walk through it during this time period, they will get ensnared. They'll take 100 magic damage, and then they won't be able to move, and they won't be able to use like phase shift or blink daggers, I believe is how that works. Let's cast it over here. You'll see it activate. As soon as they took damage, you could see it. I don't know why So it has a little bit of a delay. Let's see, can I get the animation? In Dota 1 it was really obvious what the animation was. I don't know if... Yeah, there you go. This is what it looked like in Dota 1, something like this. You don't see it on the creeps though, apparently you can't ensnare creeps. Or they just don't put the animation on the creeps. But yeah, that's how it works. Or I can cast this here, and then you can later... And then it'll... So yeah, you can walk through it eventually. The damage is 100, it's just a little bit higher because I have some int, so it does 106.2, that's why the numbers are weird. Your third skill is a new one. They didn't have this in Dota 1, they used to have this thing that would explode corpses on the ground, but I think they removed it because corpses, they exist in Dota 2, but they're very, very rare. It pretty much just comes down to spawning skeletons from the Dark Troll Warlord, so now you have an AoE minus damage aura. Very strong amount, 42% is huge, and you should probably max the skill at late game, I'm thinking. I don't like maxing it early. I think you can definitely justify one skill point early because it will give you bonus damage. For every creep that dies, you get 5 bonus damage for up to 60 seconds. For every hero that dies, you get 30 to 45 damage. So it gives you a pretty good right-click increase. With that said, I still wouldn't max this out. The only place this is maybe worth it is if you're in a 1v1 mid against a melee hero, because then you could get a lot of bonus damage from creeps dying, but keep in mind that you need to kill creeps to get damage, so you kind of still want to level up Firestorm. I would still almost always max out Firestorm, guys. I just don't see the justification in getting more points of this. And in fact, if you look at it, it doesn't even do more damage per creep. So if you're just getting it for farming, the only way that it increases your damage is by that it lasts longer. Against heroes, it does more. The only thing you get out of the skill by maxing it out is more damage reduction, more duration. If you're in a safe lane or a support role, you probably don't want to skill this early until you start trading with an enemy hero because of the fact that it will also reduce damage that the creeps do. If I go stand near the creeps here, then they're going to do less damage. So it will slow down pushes, which is a bad thing in the early game. So that could be seen as a good thing, especially if your opponent's bad at last hitting under a tower, because then you can push the wave essentially and prevent them from last sitting in an easy way. But yeah, it really does. You can really see the difference here in the damage reduction here. Yeah, this is kind of the purpose of Pit of Malice here, to keep people stuck in one area a little bit longer than they otherwise would be. So if you combo Underlord with a couple of heroes, it can be really good. Now, the way the Atrophy Aura is kind of cool, and this is something I saw from Blaze's Twitter, which I thought was a really good idea. The fact that this does 42% damage reduction. Now, the way that this works is it takes off your base damage. So this 30 that the target dummy here has, this gets affected by the 42%. If you have something like, I don't know, if the target dummy had a broadsword, which gives plus 18 damage, this gives a plus green here. If I wasn't standing here at least, it would give it a plus 18. It would 30 plus 18, but when I walk in the range, this affects it. It gets minus 12, and this would show 30 plus 6. So this is only affected by the primary stat, but it still does reduce the damage. And the way that damage block then works, this is Blaze's idea here, is that if I have a Vanguard, and it blocks 32 damage from a melee source, and this guy right now is only doing 18, obviously I take no damage, because first their damage is reduced by any damage reductions, then they apply damage, then my damage block goes through, and then whatever's left over gets applied based on my armor. So basically, if you have damage block and you have damage reduction, it's really, really good to do because they stack fully. That's why Tidehunter, for example, is so strong, because Anchor Smash reduces the damage you do. Then you try to cut through his armor, or his damage block, then you try to cut through his armor. It's very hard to do damage to Tide for that reason. So, because of that, Atrophy Aura is actually a very good damage reduction. Very, very, very good. It's especially very good against heroes that will buy lots of stat items, because if you buy stat items, that's what increases this white number. Every gauntlet I buy increases my damage by 3. Whereas if I buy, and this would therefore be affected by Atrophy Aura, therefore if I buy things like Broadsword, this number is never going to be touched. So some heroes like Phantom Assassin, for example, doesn't buy a lot of stat items, but if you're playing against a Terrorblade or a Morphling, Atrophy Aura is really good because they're going to buy a lot of agility items, and therefore Atrophy Aura will reduce a large amount of their damage. So cool combos you can maybe do. You can do Underlord with Vengeful Spirit. That way when Vengeful Spirit dies, she reduces their damage by 38%. And Underlord reduces their damage by 42%. I guarantee you, we are going to see some pub games where people pick Underlord, they pick Vengeful Spirit, and they also pick, like, Tidehunter. And you jump into the fight, you reduce their damage by 42% with Underlord. If Venge dies, she reduces it by, like, 32. And if Tide Anchor Smashes, it's, like, 60. You can actually just prevent people from doing damage. This number is actually so high that I kind of think this hero might be really strong going forward in the future. But yeah, Blaze's idea I thought was very smart, and he wanted to rush Crimson Guard. Not a very expensive item, 3,500. I think it has a pretty good build up for Underlord. What I would say is for the build is I would probably do. I think you have to go Soul Ring early game, because you're going to be casting a lot of spells. Your int gain is really good, and eventually you'll be good on mana. But I think in the early game, Soul Ring might be really good, or you can get away like. Let's say your support, for example. I don't know if support Underlord is a good thing. I would argue that it is not, probably. What about, can I level down? I'm going to reload this, because I want to see what my level 1 stats are to see whether or not it's okay to, whether or not I think it'll be realistic to try to play level 1 Underlord as a support. Probably not. I know your base strength is probably going to be really high. So I've got about 3 armor, which is not bad once I get away from the tower. It's not bad, 18%. It's pretty good level 1. Your movement speed's really good at 305. You have really high base damage. It's not bad. And the last thing is I want to see how much damage or how much base regen I have. Those are all the things that I want to find out when I'm thinking about trading with heroes. So let's take a hit here. See how value we can get. So 1 HP regen. Nothing too amazing. It's better than normal, but it's not amazing. But it's not bad. With the high movement speed, this could be good. For example, one thing you could do as a support is you could grab Atrophy Aura level 1. That way, as you're standing here, trying to trade with an offlane hero, you're getting a damage bonus. Like right now, I get 5 damage. And I'm reducing their output by 18. Now, this is kind of bad because it is going to reduce the push. But when I'm trading with an enemy hero, this bonus damage could make a difference. Never know. Could do something like that. Just stand here for a couple kills, then try to trade. I don't think anybody could trade very well with you against this. Now, does this have to be... The problem is that this has to be... They have to take damage reduction for me to get the points, though. But as you can see, just standing around for 1 creep wave, I've really increased my damage a lot. And these will tick away slowly. But using this to trade with a hero is definitely a possibility. I haven't tried it, obviously, but it could work. From here, I would probably get Pit of Malice, just because it's a lot of damage guaranteed. At level 1, this is probably one of your best skills. Unless you are, because you'd have to get hit by like 3 to 4 waves for Firestorm to be an equivalent damage source. You really don't have that much mana though, so casting any of these spells is going to be a bit limited. But I would say your early game builds, Brown Boots. I would probably build Soul Ring. Infused Raindrop could be good as well. Is going to be good for sure. But yeah, I think something like Soul Ring like this is going to be your standard build. I would maybe get Tranquils as a support. I think that's pretty justified. Maybe you get Phase. I could maybe see Phase working because you can chase people with Pit of Malice and you can chase people down with Atrophy Aura. With that said though, Treads might be better. I think in Dota 1 I used to do this weird build. I used to go like... I think I would go like Vanguard into Hex or something like that. I think was the build that I would always do. I really like Vanguard now. I would definitely argue for Vanguard. And this is maybe one reason why Tranquils is bad, because you're already going to be getting regen from Vanguard. But Vanguard's kind of expensive is the thing, so who knows. If you go like Soul Ring with Windlace, for example, early game, you're kind of set in a lot of ways. You don't have that much HP regen is maybe the only problem. But then once you get like Ring of Health, you're kind of set. Obviously, this is more of like a level 5 or level 6 period. And maybe like with a magic wand. This is already like a lot of gold, kind of. But I think this is a pretty good place that you could be as a support. Because if I'm running around like this... Still haven't talked about my ulti yet. But if I'm running around like this, I'm going to get a lot of longevity out of my spells and things like that. Just do this here. Use both because it's kind of free. But yeah, you can kind of just walk around split pushing like this. Go to a lane. Push a lane, TP to cover your allies if needed. I mean, I could have a TP scroll here, obviously. But I think this is a fairly straightforward item build, and then afterwards you make Vanguard. Maybe you should start Stout Shield as well then, because then you can trade with your offlane hero much better with Atrophy Aura. As a support, that's probably what I would do. I would probably start like Stout Shield. Stout Shield, 1 Tango, 1 Clarity, with some support items, and then I would trade with my offlane hero with Atrophy and have another support that pulls. That's probably what I do. I'd try that. That's probably the first thing I'll try as a support on Underlord. I don't really know if this guy's better mid. You can play him mid and he'd be good because you'd be getting bonus damage from Atrophy. You could right click, your armor is good, Your agility again's kind of bad, but that's okay. I mean, you can basically get a bottle and then just spam out waves like this, and there's not really that much that your opponent can do about it, other than deny. But even last hitting against Atrophy Aura is going to be pretty tough, so I don't know, I sort of feel like Underlord could work as a mid, I just don't think he's going to transition very well. If you do play mid, you probably have to do something like Mech. You have to play him kind of like a Viper pushing kind of hero. You can kill creeps really easily, but you can't kill towers is the next issue. You can buy something like, I don't know, Veil is definitely a good item possibility. Again, I would go Vanguard probably, just to become so tanky that it's really hard for people to kill me, but as a support, is that good? I don't know, but once you get Soaring, you should be able to kind of AFK jungle a lot. You can clear stacks and stuff like that. I think you could do it reasonably fast just because of the fact that you do have so much damage output. I mean, it's this 12-second cooldown here for this skill, so it's doing damage very, very often. And with a Soul Ring, you can really provide a lot of longevity to that. I mean, I've already got a pretty good mana pool here, and I'm only level 7. And the only mana item I have is Magic Wand, Raindrop, and Soul Ring. So these 3 items together can definitely facilitate this kind of growth. You could also, if you don't want to buy Vanguard first, you could just buy the... Oh, no, wait, you can't do that, sorry. Because Crimson Guard is not the other one. It's Buckler, so you don't need any Ring of Regen. So Ring of Health getting there is going to be pretty expensive. Maybe you could justify for Tranquil Boots here, and then later make Crimson. But I just kind of feel like having both Tranquil and Vanguard is kind of a waste. The movement speed increase is not bad though, so it might be worth it. It's probably worth it. So yeah, I would say probably Tranquil for your early game. I would aim for this. Tranquil, Soul Ring. That way you can run around and cast a lot of spells. Tranquil, Soul Ring. And then Windlace, Stout Shield, Wand, something like this is really good. You can run around, you can fight a lot with this, and you should pretty much always have mana pool. So you're kind of playing very similar to Jakiro actually, is what I would say. That similar like tanky group up and push kind of playstyle. You probably should max out Pit of Malice second, I think. I'm not completely sold on that. I'm sure it depends on the game, but I think maxing this out is good. You want to get that cooldown down, you want to get your duration up. The mana cost does cost more, but the lower cooldown is a really big deal. 12-second cooldown is huge. This here is actually so similar to Jakiro in so many ways, actually. Very, very similar to Jakiro, actually. Never realized that before, but he's very similar. You have a passive that limits enemy damage output. You can't kill towers with it, but you can push creep waves extremely efficiently. You have a kind of crappy disable. It's actually amazing how similar Underworld is to Jakiro. The only difference is your ultimate is different. But I think this is almost always going to be my skill build. The only time that I would go Atrophy Aura is probably if I'm ahead. If I'm playing a core Underlord, I would probably max this out first, maybe, just because the damage increase could be huge. Again, if you don't want to get Tranquil Boots, you could either get Phase to be a little bit speedier in small bursts, especially when escaping. So when I use Phase, I'm way faster than when I had Tranquils on. The difference though is armor is weaker. You can also gap close, for example, if I'm running somewhere and I need to get a Pit of Malice off. So you need to get there before your opponent does. I could justify Phase Boots here, I think. And past that, I can finally use my ultimate. Can talk about that. But yeah, I'd probably almost always max Atrophy out later. Even though the damage is pretty big. 18, that's a difference of 8% every level. Around this point in the game, everyone's hitting for about 100. It's about 8 less damage. It's honestly not bad at all. I just don't know if it's justified. I would max this out depending on the game, basically. If they have an illusion-based hero like Morphling, yeah, I definitely want to max that out pretty fast. But most of the times, if they have evasive heroes or something like that, or we're lacking Disable, you can get a lot of value out of Pit of Malice. Big time. That extra Disable can make or break a game. It can be really useful. So, level based on what you want, but almost always I'm going to recommend Pit of Malice. If you're support, absolutely go Pit of Malice. If you're playing a core, I would say you can get a mix of Atrophy Aura and Pit of Malice, or you can just max out Atrophy ASAP. It all depends on how fast you get your Vanguard, basically. If you get your Vanguard really rapidly, or if you build a mech, for example, then you're going to be in a really good spot. You could definitely do something like, if you're support as well, by the way, you could do something like, oh, I want to go Arcane Mech or something. That's fine. You can go Soul Ring Mech with Tranquil Boots or something. That could be really good. I really think Soul Ring's going to be a really straightforward way to play the hero, but I mean, hypothetically you could play Arcanes as well, just you won't have any HP regen. I really like the Soul Ring build though. I kind of like phase how this looks right now in terms of my item pool. It's not bad. I mean, you just kill creep waves so fast. It's like so easy. Just new creep waves constantly. That's why soloing's important. Anything else to think about, I guess. Yeah, Vanguard into Crimson, or instead of this, you can get a mech. Would be really good. Mech's fantastic here. I don't know if I'd want phase boots in this case. I might want like treads, perhaps. That way I can tread switch. Get more mana pool. So Soul Ring on strength, switch to int. And this way you have better attack speed when your Atrophy Ore is kicking butt. Maybe if you're playing mid Underlord, I would definitely go mech probably. And after mech, I would probably go something like Veil. If they're mostly physical damage, I would go Veil, I think. Or at this point, you could go Crimson Guard. Just because this is really going to increase the damage output that you do.
Yes.
I'm a little limited on mana here. I'd probably have a bottle, most likely. So now all of a sudden you're just doing tons more damage. I kind of like this whole like mech Veil build for heroes like Underlord and Jakiro, because it puts you into this position where you will keep the team alive with mech. You can also keep your team alive by attack speed reductions and slows and stuff. Underlord is a little bit different. Damage reduction, damage, some disable. Disable's not nearly as good as Jakiro's, but his AoE damage is arguably just as good. And then with you have mech, you're very... Look how tanky I am. Like, I'm level 11 right here. This is not an unrealistic item build for my level timing. If these are my items right now, if I have this much armor against physical damage due to mech as well as Veil, and I have a wand, and there's damage reduction from Atrophy Ore, I can kind of just be a fixture of the team. And because you have fairly low cooldown skills, I'm basically always alive, hopefully, keeping my team alive, putting out AoE damage, putting out AoE disables, and right-clicking. This build right here is quite good, I would say. So that's why the Veil is kind of cool. It gives you 6 armor, it gives you 6 regen to keep you survivable, and the extra int is good. And you're going to always buff up the damage that your team does as well. That part's pretty fun. So you're kind of just a fixture and a pushing team fight. I like this build, although I think it's probably safer in lots and lots of ways to go this build instead. If you had this build instead, this is far more survivable. And like Blaze pointed out, I don't know if I fully covered this or not. Crimson Guard plus Atrophy Ore is going to be amazing. So let's level up 3 times. So now this creep is only doing 15 damage, and then if I do Crimson Guard, then I'll take no damage basically. So pretty much if with Crimson active it does 55, and this reduces by 42, so that means if they do less than... Let me refresh this. I'm gonna say, well, I was gonna take 0 without this anyways, but you can't see the buff for some reason. Let me do math really quick. So if they have around 90 damage or something like that, they basically do 0 when Crimson is active. It's pretty amazing, actually. If you max out the skill pretty fast, you're gonna see a lot of funny games with this hero. All right, let's show you the good shit. The way that your ultimate works is... Okay, so it looks like they buffed this. In the past, it used to only teleport to towers at level 1. Now you can teleport to creeps always, I'm guessing. So you basically channel this, and anybody that's in the circle will get teleported. That's how this works. So it used to only teleport... If I reload this at level 1, I want to see if it still teleports to creeps at level 1. It used to not. It used to only go structures at level 1. At level 11, you could go to... units, or maybe level 16, I can't remember. Again, I think this should always be your skill build. Looks like it's always going to work to creep. So basically, if you're getting ganked or something, you think you're dead, you can always TP out. So in this way, Underworld is arguably better than Jakiro, because you basically group up with your team, you go somewhere, and if shit hits the fan, you teleport out. But you got to stay alive for 5 seconds. I don't know if it matters if you get interrupted or not. It can be cancelled... Okay, the only way to cancel it though, you can't stun him while he's casting. I don't think that works. Once you cast it, it's going. The only way to cancel it during the cast is if Underlord dies, or if the unit I'm teleporting to dies.
There is work to be done.
If I double cast it, it sends me to Fountain. Okay, that's what I figured. So it's pretty hard to kill. And again, he takes everybody with him. So those will be my allies coming with me as well. Or what you can do is, somebody's farming. They're not paying attention. They're not paying attention. Somehow they're still not paying attention. Oh, here comes the gank. Nobody saw them coming. It was actually a lot harder to see in Dota 1 because it was this little purple like burning thing. But this one is really clear. And you can look, sounds like you can hear it as well. So, you know, it's a little bit difficult, but you can do stuff like, I don't know, jump in Chronosphere while you're Pit of Malicing in, or whatever it's called, Dark Rifting. Oh, you can cancel it now. I didn't know that. Well, that's cool. In the past, you weren't able to cancel that, I think. Once it got casted, you were all in. A lot of people throw team fights. Anyways, that's Underlord. That's probably how I'm going to play him. I'm going to try him support first. So I actually really liked playing him in Dota 1. One item build that I used to really always like as well was, I think I would go Soul Ring Vanguard, and then I would get, maybe with the Ring of Basilius is what I would do. Soul Ring Vanguard, Ring of Basilius. Or maybe Ring of Basilius straight into Vanguard. And then I would get a Scythe of Ice, was my build immediately afterwards. And I just felt like it impacted so well in terms of disable. Because I could Hex and then Pit of Malice. It gave me mana to cast Firestorm. And my hero felt about tanky enough just with Soul Ring to cast a lot. But I definitely want to try out this Vanguard build, depending on their lineup. If they're very physical heavy, if they're very right-click heavy, I will get Crimson Guard most likely. And possibly max out Pit of Malice a little earlier. If they are very nuke heavy, then I'm probably going to go for something like Mech instead. That'll probably be the better build as a support. And, you know, who knows, maybe I'll get Arcane Boots, but level 7 here, Arcanes would have like a wand here and a Windlace most likely. Make sure you buy Windlace. I've really been undervaluing this item in the past, but it's fantastic right now. So just something like this looks pretty strong as a support around 10 or so minutes. It's not bad. You're pretty easy to kill. Your HP's not that high, but, you know, it could work. At least this way you have the mana that you might need. So, alright, that's Underlord. Go try them out in your pubs, guys. I'll make a video of them soon. I'm going to a theme park today, so I had that planned. But, yeah, I'll definitely get playing them tomorrow and give you guys some more visual aid in how to play them well. Sorry this video is so long, but I hope maybe you guys enjoyed that. But, yeah, I just kind of wing this in case that wasn't clear. And hopefully that helps you guys learn too. That's how I figure stuff out, you know. Just theory crafting, talking about items, what I think might be interesting, what I think might be good. Stuff like that. Alright, see you guys later. Bye.